Alright folks, welcome back to the channel. I am making today fruitcake and I am going to can it. And I will put a disclaimer out there that this is probably not a safe thing to do according to the FDA, but we're in Canada, so who cares, right? Just kidding. So I'm making the fruitcake. It's a 100-year-old recipe. It is it's from England, Scotland. I have made this batch last week and it is fantastic. There's only a cup and a half of sugar in the cake recipe and the cake batter, apart from the sweetness of the fruit, which really isn't all that much. So right now I've got my jars soaking in some hot soapy water along with the lids, the rings. The lids I am going to soften up in some boiling water when I am finished steaming my pudding, my cake. I'll wash these up and we'll come back. All right, so here we go. I have my fruit. I was soaking, so you soak the fruit in a half a bottle of port. It says use cheap port, but I figure, hey, if we're gonna eat this, may as well use some good port, right? It all works out in the end. So yeah, there's about 8-10 pounds actually of fruit. Now you may think this is quite a bit, like I did when I first did this recipe a few days ago, but it actually works out pretty good. It fills up 9 750 ml pint jars, or not pint, no, 750 ml pint jar. 9 750 ml jars. Here's some we opened up. The cake, couldn't wait. There was a good seal on it. You could hear the vacuum hiss when we pop the lid off and stuff like that. So these have been soaking overnight since like 11 o'clock last night. It's now about 20 to 2 here, local time. The stuff smells fantastic. It looks great. Green cherries, red cherries, peel, giant raisins, regular raisins, dates, and some mixed berries in there as well too. All dried except for the cherries and stuff. So yeah, mix this up. I'll get my batter going here in a second and I'll come back and start throwing this together. All right, my jars are washed, nice and sanitized, drip drying. I've got some racks over here, which I'm going to put in my pots here, which have water in them, which I'll explain later on. My lid's ready to go. Boil a little pot of water. Ooh, lousy camera work today, folks. Boil a little pot of water in the back there to soften up the lids when the time comes for me to start putting stuff together. A little bit of margarine. Recipe calls for a cup of tea, cup of molasses. I've got 4 cups of flour and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ginger, 1 teaspoon of cloves. You might think it's a lot of clove for that amount of flour, but actually it works out and the taste is phenomenal when it's cooked. My fruit, still doing its thing here. I've got 2/3 of a cup of margarine. You can use margarine, you can use butter. The recipe calls for shortening actually. A cup and a half of sugar, which is actually really good for all the stuff this is going to make. So yeah, I'll get this going, cream it up, and then we'll start adding the dry ingredients in the liquid. Okay, got the margarine and the sugar whipped up nice and creamed. It's all nice. It's nice and fluffy and it's light, and it's lightened up in color as it does. I whipped that for like 3 minutes or so on medium-high speed with the paddle. Next, we're going to add 8 eggs. You might think that's a lot of eggs, and it is, but it's not. It actually works out pretty good in the recipe. I've cracked all my eggs into a measuring cup because when you add eggs to the mixing bowl, see if I can do this and balance the camera, the eggs will come out one at a time. Oh, I missed that. Here, we'll do a second one. I'll add 2. Here we go. You get a little bit of white and you get a little bit of yolk. Okay, so we'll mix that up and we'll keep on rocking. All right, in my gung-ho-ness to get this fruitcake cooking and going and stuff, I forgot to cut out my parchment rounds. The reason why I'm cutting out parchment rounds, here we go, is to stick them in the bottom of the jars, just like that. What that's going to do is it's going to help the cake release. The cake shrinks back from the sides once it cools, but with the parchment paper on the bottom, when you turn it upside down, it slides. A practical demonstration. You want to see that again? Sure you do. Alrighty. So that, and once I've done this, once I've cut out the rounds, I'm going to take some non-stick spray, spray the inside of the jars, spray the bottom, put the parchment in, give the parchment a shot of spray, just in case, because you can never have too much, right? So yeah, I'll keep on cutting. They let me play with scissors today. If you're worried about drawing with pencil, the circumference, the diameter, the round circle on the bottom of the jar is bigger than the inside, so if you cut actually on the inside of the lead or whatever they use, graphite, you're not going to get any in your food. Anyway, I'll keep on cutting and I'll come back. All right, we got our eggs and butter and our margarine and sugar all mixed together, and you're looking at this and going, wow, that's pretty grainy. And I go, yeah, it is, but who cares? This cake is going to steam for 2 hours, then it's going to bake for an extra hour in dry heat. Once I mix the flour into this, all those lumps are going to disappear. It's like when you make pancakes. Leave a couple lumps in the pancake batter. Don't overmix it. Those lumps will disappear when you cook the pancakes. And it's the same when you're adding a roux to a boiling liquid. There might be a few lumps in there, but once you stir it for a little while, and it starts to cook and it starts to break down the flour and it starts to thicken the liquid, those lumps are going to disappear. So we got that all nice and done. Here's my flour again. That's 4 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, a teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of, what's that stuff? Ginger, and a teaspoon of allspice. Not allspice, sorry, cloves. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sieve it together. I'm going to sift it. It's going to get all the lumps out of everything. And once all the lumps are gone, I don't know if you can hear me as I'm making noise, but this is going to look spectacular here in a second. There we go. A couple lumps left there. No big deal. You want to mix it further, get yourself a whisk. Change hands on the camera. Try not to drop my iPad. And just give it a stir. There we go. Man, this is brutal. Brutal camera work, but who cares? It's going to taste good when it's all done. These cool non-slip bowls I got from my sister who lives in Kamloops. Thank you very much. Mucho apreciado. Yes, I've got this mixed, and we'll start adding it with our other wet ingredients to the flour here quickly. All right, I've added my molasses to the mixture. I just drained in the rest of my little carton out of here because that's the bottom of it. 1 cup of molasses, and then 1 cup of cold tea. Just any old black tea will do. Boil it, steep it, cool it off, and then we just pour it in. Hey, camera work is getting better. Look at that. Anyway, so we got that in there. I'll put this down and we'll get that all mixed up and then we'll add the flour. All right, I am back. Got the wet ingredients mixed in with the eggs and the butter and the sugar. So now I'm going to spray my jars. What you want is just any kind of old spray. It doesn't have to be brand name. It doesn't have to be anything. You can get it from anywhere. And I just want to spray the inside of my jar. You can go all the way to the top if you want. It's not necessary because I'm only going to fill up the batter. These Bernardin jars have a logo imprinted into the glass. It just stops right about there. I'm going to fill up the jars with batter to that point, and then I'm going to steam them. So anyway, so you spray your jar, no rocket science. Put your parchment paper in there. Give it another little squirt. And keep on keeping on. Okay, here we go, folks. I got my dry ingredients right here. Got my wet ingredients right there. I'm just going to pour, let's say 1/3 to a half in there. Turn my handy dandy KitchenAid mixer on nice and slow so nothing comes flying out the sides. As if you know you got a mixer and sometimes you turn it on too fast, stuff will fly out all over the place. Right, mix that in. And it's really thin right now, but it will come together once all the flour gets in there. No problemo. Give it a little more juice. Get my hand out of the way of the shot so you can see what's going on. There you go. And we'll add the rest of the flour. Clean up the mess that I made. And we'll finish mixing this in, and then we'll add it to the fruit, and we'll be ready almost to put them in the jars. Incidentally, if you're really concerned about the lumps of the sugar and the eggs and stuff and the butter, if you whip all your eggs, if you beat all your eggs into a measuring cup, and if you turn your mixer on and start mixing very slow and you drizzle in your eggs, it will not go grainy. It will be nice and creamy and fluffy. It's when you add stuff a lot at a time that it goes grainy. But like I said, in this case, who cares? The flour's in there. It's going to look great. Alrighty. So I got my fruit and I've got my batter. And what I'm going to do now, let's get a little angle on that. Take my lovely batter. We're just going to scoop it all into the bowl here. All of it. Too bad I wasn't left-handed, then I could have done this the other way and you could have seen me scraping out the bowl, right? Whatever. Okay, so make sure we get all of it out, most of it out that we can. Alrighty, there we go. So you're never going to be able to stir this with a spoon. That's a lot of fruit. It's sticky. And the port in it, the batter's thick and heavy. Rubber gloves, people. When I was cooking in the restaurants and stuff, when we were making big bowls of Caesar salad, we'd have a big honking bowl. We throw the salad in there, we throw the dressing in there, put on a pair of gloves, roll up our sleeves, and just start mixing by hand, which is what I'm going to do here. Because like I said, this is a lot of stuff. Oh, look at that, I'm making a mess already. There's a lot of stuff, and it's heavy. But hey, if you've been going to the gym and working out, and if you think you can stir this with a spoon, then go for it. Otherwise, oh look at that, I'm really making a mess now. Alrighty. So we work it in until it's all mixed, and it'll look nice and lovely and all cakey and stuff. Get your hands right in the bottom there and just lift up. And this smells awesome. Boy, let me tell you. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. So there, that's pretty much mixed. I will bring it over to the other counter here shortly. Take my gloves off, and then we'll start filling the jars. All right, here we go, the filling of the jars. I've got my jars with the parchment paper in it. I've got my cake batter and all the fruit looking all big and heavy. Got my, I don't know what you call this thing, whatever this thing is, you put it in the jars, you don't get stuff on the edge of it. Anyway, you fill, and I don't know if you can see, but right about here is the top of that Bernardin label stamped into the jar. That's pretty much where I want to fill it up to, or thereabouts. If you go a little bit over, who cares? And when you steam these things, if they come out the top of the jar, just cut it off before you put the lids on. It's really not a big deal. And you know what? Don't worry about air bubbles in the bottom, because once this starts to steam, that's all going to settle down. And it's all going to get nice and lovely in there as it cooks. Oh, covered up the label. Right about there. So just a little bit more. Oh, maybe just a little bit more, just to make it look nice and balanced. So that's it, you just fill the jars. I've got 8 more to go. Last time I had to make a small 250 ml jar. Using the 750 ml jars because they're a nice size, and any of the other jars are too small, and the wide mouth, and this is nice and tall, and it's all the same width all the way up. You could use the 1 pint jars, but even those are tapered a bit at the top, so you'd have, or sorry, the 1 liter jars, but those are tapered at the top a little bit. I'm sure there are some jars out there that are completely straight, but here in Canada, we only have so much stuff, right? Third world problems. So yeah, I'll finish filling the jars, and then I'll show you the steamer setup that we're gonna have to do. All right. right, my jars are filled. We're around and ready to go. I've got some white vinegar in a paper towel, and I'm going to start cleaning the lids off here, or sorry, the ribs off. One jar at a time, because I'm pretty sure I got some of that non-stick spray stuff over some of the lips here. So yeah, it's just if you've been canning stuff for a while, you know to clean the lids. Sorry, the rims, I don't want to call them the lids. Clean the jars, the rim of the jars with white vinegar. So I'll keep on doing this. All right, my jars are filled. The rims are wiped down, all ready to go. So the reason for these racks and these big pots is that I have to steam this cake for 2 hours. Now, in the recipe, it says put them in round cake pans, 2 inches deep, lined with paper, floured, greased, all that kind of good stuff. And apparently you can actually buy a fruitcake steamer if you're cooking it in a pan, which I am not. So as you can see, this bigger pot here, I've got a bunch of racks just so all the jars sit evenly on the bottom. And this one has one big rack which fits nicely in the bottom. So the jars steam for 2 hours, and what you want to do, you want to put enough water in there to come about at least a quarter of the way up. Quarter of the way up the jar. Which from experience from last time, this should be plenty, lots, except maybe for this one I might have to, steaming up my lens, might have to add a little bit more water to it. But we'll get this to a rolling boil, and we'll start dropping the jars in, and I'll be back. All right, we're cooking with gas now. This one's boiling away. I'm going to turn down the heat and pop the lid onto it and let that simmer for 2 hours. This bad boy is getting close. It's just starting to ripple at the bottom there. All right, I'll put these on, and I'll see you in 2 hours after my nap. Alrighty, 2 hours is up, and the cake is looking fantastic. They've steamed for 2 hours. They're mostly all at the same level, but you know what? That's okay. When they can up, they're going to be nice. I've got my cookie sheet here, my baking sheet, and my handy dandy jar lifter, so I don't burn my fingers off. I will transfer these jars to this sheet. And what I'm going to do this time is, in the recipe it calls for wrapping the cake in cheesecloth and then dousing some port on it every now and again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put about a tablespoonful of port into each of these, and then I'm going to put them to set to bake in the oven. And then I will heat up my lids in my little pot down here, my lids in my little pot down here, and then when they come out of the oven, they'll be stinking hot and ready to go. Anyway, let's get busy. All right, you can see the port is pooled there, looking pretty good. I've got it into all my jars here, got them on my baking sheet, and I will pop them into my 300 oven for an hour, and when they're done, out they come. All right, we got them out of the oven. They're stinking hot. This one popped up a little bit, I'm not sure why. Hopefully it'll kind of settle its way back down. I'll can him last, or I'll put the lid on last. Yeah, I got my handy dandy lifter here, and I will start lifting these jars. I've got my lids all nice and softened here, and I'll start putting them on one at a time. And I will grab my rings. Ooh. And try not to drop anything on the floor. There, contestant number 1. I'll get the lids on all of these. Oh, look at this one sliding back down again. This is kind of weird. It just broke off and started rising when it was baking. She's looking good, Vern. I'll come back when I got the lids on here, and maybe we'll hear some pop as they seal. All right, we got them all sealed. We got the lid, well, not all sealed. We got all the lids on. We got the bands on. Looking good. That cake did settle back down into its place there. That's kind of weird that it broke off like that, but hey, it is what it is. And maybe I'll keep talking for a couple seconds and we'll hear another one pop. I already had 2 pop. One there, one there. Oh, there we go. Now I can turn this off and start editing. All right, there we go, guys. Fruitcake canned. Yeah, hope you enjoy. Hope you like it. It's a really fantastic tasting cake, that's for sure. Not too sweet, and it's got a nice texture to it and a nice flavor with that port. There goes another one. Look at that, they're popping like crazy. And you know, and if you're worried about these sealing, you know, once you get the lids on and the screw bands on, there's probably no reason why you couldn't actually water bath these for 10 minutes. Sealed, no water's getting in, just the air getting out as they're processed. Anyway, we'll see you on the next one. Yeehaw!